Welcome to the Confidence Conversations podcast. I'm Gail from Enrichment Coaching, Clarity and Courage Coaching for Confidence, and I'm the founder and CEO, or actually I prefer Chief Enrichment Officer. I love to make a difference to those beliefs that you have about what you think you can and can't do. So the idea behind this podcast is to get the confidence conversation going, and I want to explore all the different views and opinions on confidence because there's loads out there. I'm going to be talking to lots of different people over the episodes and exploring their confidence. How do they know when it's at their strongest? How do they know when it's at their lowest? And how do they manage that? And I'll be asking them for their top tips or takeaways about how they enrich their own confidence. Now, just to be clear, these conversations won't have any fancy editing. They'll be organic and authentic, just letting the conversation flow. That said, I know I'll be curious, so there may be a hint of coaching and questioning along the way. So, let's go. So, hi everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Confidence Conversations podcast. And I'm excited today to say that I have our first male voice this morning. So I'm really excited to welcome Julian Moore to the podcast. So Julian, how I've been introducing everyone else is in true blind date style for those of us that are old enough to remember blind date.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from and what you do.
Okay. Well, I'm a Londoner. I live now down in Chichester. So I've been in senior sales roles for most of my career, and for most of it within the IT sector. And about 12 years ago, I went independent, became a consultant, formed my own company, Sales Consulting Solutions. And really what I do, I work with tech vendors and some other companies actually. So it's not exclusive technology. I did work with a company in the supplements business, for example. And I've also worked with leadership development organizations, leadership development individuals. So I'm very interested in what you do and, you know, the whole sort of psychology of being confident, really. So what I deliver to my clients is really proposition development. I think there's a gap between sometimes what tech companies think their clients are looking for and how they message that, and then the tech companies in terms of understanding the marketplace and what's available to them so that they can then deliver strategies. Alongside all of that, which is, you know, the proposition development, I do a lot of business development. So I will actively look for introductions, clients, conversations on behalf of companies, or I'll work with their sales teams to help them get better engagement with the people that they're seeking to, you know, have become customers in the future. I hope that made sense.
Yeah,
a little bit off the cuff there.
It makes perfect sense. So I guess the kind of the reason we met in Room 2, for those of you who don't know Room 2, go check it out. It's a great co-working space in Chichester. And I think one of the guys there had asked me to deliver talking about the confidence muscle, which was where we first met because you came along to that talk. And I loved you when you just said, you know, leadership development, you live sort of the psychology of being confident. So tell me then from my first question, which is, well, what does confidence mean to you?
I think confidence is probably two or three things. I think, first of all, to be positive about life. I think you have to have a sort of an underpinning of, you know, wanting to feel good and do good. I think if you are positive and if you are confident, I think it actually gives you more ability to think more creatively, think more widely. I think, you know, if you look at the flip side of confidence, where you may be nervous or negative, I actually think that starts to shut down options in terms of how you can navigate through the day, through the week. and widely through life. But I would say that I don't think it's a passive pastime. I think confidence is active, and I think you have to sort of work at it. And the way I like to think about that is that if you're feeling unsure or not so confident about anything, you really need to sort of analyze and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? And what that normally results in, I find, is that you need to do some more work. Which,
I love that.
you know, I mean, unfortunately, that's a reality. I guess you can kind of bluff, but if you really want to be confident, know what you're talking about, and confidence will come along with it.
Yeah, God, there's loads in there that I'm really interested in. I'm like frantically making notes here. The first thing that I really loved is the piece about you sort of saying, you know, it kind of this underpinning feeling of, you know, wanting to do and feel good. I really like that kind of it underpins almost kind of everything you do.
Yeah.
And I also really love the analogy of, you know, thinking when you think confidently, you think widely and creative, but on the flip side, it kind of almost shuts down on you. And I can just kind of got this visual image of things closing in around you. And I suppose we're into kind of the growth and the closed mindset there, aren't we?
Yeah.
But then this piece around, and I've not heard it described like this, so this is why I love these conversations, is that, you know, you saying this isn't a passive pastime, right? This is active.
Not for me anyway.
No, but I don't think it is for anybody. So someone else I spoke to, which was Elaine Hart from Power Fitness Events, she talks about confidence being a practice, which is similar to what you're describing it as. But I like this, you know, it's not a passive pastime, people. It's active. You've got to work with it. And also the bit for me, and you use the word bluff, which other people talk about fake it till you make it, and at which point I pull this like really horrible face. It's like, no, let's not fake this, people. Let's go out and practice it, and let's make it an active pastime where we're practicing confidence all the time. God, I love all of that. I really, this image of, you know, and it's true, isn't it? When you think about it being nervous and negative and it closing in on you, you start to feel smaller.
Absolutely. This happens to me fairly frequently, is that I'll get tunnel vision on a problem and forget to jump outside of it just to get a better perspective. And that's one of my practices. And I mean, you and I were talking about the dog I'm looking after at the moment. It is actually a great opportunity just to walk out with Jasper and look at the trees, and you just get a click, which is, you know, why am I fretting over X? You know, it's irrelevant. Or if it is relevant, there's another way to approach it, and ideas spring to mind. So as a practice, I would say breaks, change of scenery, fresh air, they are probably one of the most productive things you can do in the course of a day. And it sounds counterintuitive. You know, you mean going for a walk is productive? Yes, I do. It's completely productive.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I mean, I go out running. And this morning there's two things this morning that or over the weekend, they'd kind of flitted in and out of my mind. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm not sure. And this morning I've gone out running and I've come back, and the minute I got in, like I was a little bit warm, shall we say. I've written down the notes because it just, that clarity came through that. And then I was like confident enough to go and type up the proposal that I've wanted to put in.
So, you get that clarity. You think, right, I know how I'm going to handle this. And then you have action. You have immediate action because you want to get it down. You want to get it out there. You don't want to forget. So top tip, do these breaks, get out, get some fresh air.
And you and I have talked in the past about this whole, almost forcing it, whether that's been with clients or work or something that you've been thinking of, and I think we all go through this where we work really hard because we really want our next client, or we really want something to come off, or we really want something to happen. And actually sometimes just stepping away and going, do you know what, don't force it. Just let it kind of organically, naturally happen. And then these clients come from nowhere and you're like, oh, okay.
I know. It's the weirdest thing. I mean, you and I did chat about that. And just to stop worrying or overthinking seems to produce results. So I was fretting a bit over some, being an independent consultant, you get the peaks and troughs, as you do, I'm sure. But when you sort of just adopt the right attitude, it's like I don't want to sound woo-woo here, but it's almost like you put on a cosmic signal, and some for some reason you start getting phone calls and emails saying, "Can you help me?" I don't know. I'm pushing it a bit far, but I mean, absolutely. And the other thing is, why stress? I mean, come on, just get on with it. I mean, don't be lazy, but just try not to stress.
So true.
Or recognize if you're stressing. I spent some time in corporate life where I probably didn't recognize that I was stressing over situations that I either needed to accept, get over it, or change. And I was living in this sort of middle ground of not accepting, but not really invoking the change, or perhaps speaking up. And that's stress. Right there.
And I don't think that we think about that as stress in the moment, do we? But this whole piece around, and I don't want to sound woo-woo either, because that just isn't my style, but I do agree that there is something in this acknowledgement, accepting, and kind of moving on almost. But it's really hard to do. It's not easy, is it? But I think once you've done it once or twice and you get used to it, and you, like you say, you recognize that's what it is. You recognize these triggers that kind of trigger those feelings, then you can then deal with that.
You and I have also spoken about this my little thing. I think you sort of chimed with this thought somewhat, which is I've spent in my past a lot of time wasting time in that zone. And I think I said to you that even a talisman, like a bracelet or a key fob or some little talisman, which denotes or asks you to check if you're being stuck and over circular thinking about things. It just almost something on your key ring or on your desk which says, where are you? What are you doing right now? And if you can touch it or look at it and think, oh yeah, no, I'm doing it. Because when you're in it, you can't always recognize you're in it. And what's annoying is being in it for hours and the clock's ticking on life. And so sometimes just, anything to tap you on the shoulder, especially if you're a solo worker, just to sort of keep you cognizant of what you should be doing. It's a big subject. You can hear it interests me greatly. Probably not for this call, but no,
but I think a lot of people that work on their own will resonate with that, because I think you get so almost a bit blinkered, don't you? You can't see another way until something, I don't know, interrupts your thinking or breaks you, or you see something that reminds you, or even like you've said, do you know what, if it's not something physical that you can touch or you can tap, if it just take a step away, go make yourself a cup of tea.
Exactly.
Go and have a break, go for a walk around the block. Those things will bring you back almost into the moment, into the present, and into what's going on and what's happening for you, I think.
I got an interesting thing actually from Cortana, which is a AI thing on Microsoft.
Yeah.
And they sent me a thing which said, would you like us to schedule breaks, development time, and one other thing? And I just thought, yeah, I will. So I just accepted this. There are 3 things. And they all popped into my diary. So there you are. Cortana may, or I'm sure Google do the same thing.
Yeah.
Can just maybe just stick it in the diary. You don't have to act on it.
But it's
I
still
mean,
a
if I,
reminder.
yeah, and it just says, so yeah, just, and it's diarised for you. So yeah,
Great.
just do it. Anyway, yeah.
But we're less likely to do that for ourselves, aren't we? Unless somebody kind of does it for us, I suppose. Yeah. So Julian, then tell me when you see or feel your confidence at its strongest.
When I've made my mind up.
Okay, great. And how do you make your mind up?
It's back to that thing of think about what's holding you up, do the work. It always comes back to this effort.
Yeah.
Make your mind up. And that doesn't give you confidence, but what it does do is give you direction and focus, and then confidence needs to be behind that. If you're not really committed or made up your mind, or sort of understanding what you want to do, it's very difficult to get confidence behind a woolly plan. And I live in a very dynamic space. Sales is very dynamic, and not everything you run across should be adopted, i.e. jobs or work, or and I do have the power to say no. So I would say, to get confidence, first of all, don't be lazy, do the work, make sure you know what you want to do and why you want to do it, and then go and get the confidence. And the confidence will come from asking questions, being bold, being brave, saying no, and being consistent with your persona and your brand. And just be consistent. So that people understand who Gail is, who Julian is, and what you do, and be clear. Just be, I call it brave. It's the wrong word. It's just be clear. So if you think I have some concerns over, say it.
And actually, for me, that's about being yourself. That's about not like you said, not holding back on some of those things. And if you're uncomfortable about something, then say it. It's going to feel uncomfortable, right? You probably don't feel confident enough to say it, but once you've said it, you'll feel different.
Yeah, absolutely. And you should be confident in what you're saying, or at least confident enough to have a good chat about potential way forwards. I speak to a lot of people. Sales is tough. A lot of people working for tech organizations spend a lot of time, kissing frogs, as it were. So it's tough, and there's not one answer to everything. But you have to be prepared to sort of go down that path, explore all the avenues, and work up a plan, stick to the plan, report on the plan, execute, adjust. So I sound like I'm promoting the business, but it's you have to have the confidence to do that, and to ask the tough questions. Sometimes you can be speaking to somebody that you would love to have a business relationship with, but it's not happening. And so you need to decide if it's really not happening, and cut and run and go. Never, exclusively forever sort of thing, but you just pace, it becomes increasingly important in sales. So asking the right questions in a positive and the right way is the way forward. So yeah, I feel confident when I've got a plan I can really get behind, that I understand. But as Jack Canfield always said, you can have a plan, but the headlights only shine so far. You can plan the road ahead, but you can only see about 3 lampposts away. The rest is all a bit uncertain.
And then you reach a road closed sign. And actually, I just wanted to explore that a little bit with you about, sales is tough, whether you're in kind of sales, like you are, or sales like I am, because whether I like it or not, I'm still kind of selling myself, aren't I? My services and that kind of thing. And it's well known that actually coaches aren't great salespeople, but I think everybody that works for themselves feels this kind of rejection, probably disappointment when it's a no, that they come across in a no.
Yeah.
So how, and obviously that your confidence then gets knocked, doesn't it? Because then you're like, oh, well, why don't they want to work with me? What do you mean they want to go and work with the person down the road? You have that kind of knock of confidence and self-doubt, and then Betty kicks in and starts kind of questioning you. But when your confidence is at its lowest, how do you deal with that?
I think it's back to the original conversation, which is to really, I'm very, I'm quite a deep thinker despite appearances. But no, so confidence is low with me. Probably when I doubt the potential for the outcome that I think we need, or is the right outcome. And the right outcome for me is normally me feeling comfortable with a piece of work that I'm prepared to take on. But not wanting to be overly prescriptive about what they ought to be doing. Clients are clients, and they're busy and they want results. They could greatly help themselves if they really understood, the challenges, for example, that I face and that their sales teams face. And I think they do understand the challenges, but they probably don't have a huge amount of sympathy or appreciation for the challenges around tech sales, and a lot of sort of C-level sort of VPs for revenue have short fuses for, rightly so, they're under a lot of pressure to get revenues in, get customer numbers up. But the more modern way of engagement there is all about building strong relationships with potential customers. This is quite a shift from 10 years ago when you built relationships with customers. Now we're building relationships with people that aren't customers. And the reason we're doing it is because that's what the modern world demands. They won't become customers unless you have a strong and trusted relationship with them before they spend their first penny. And that requires great investment and time.
And hard work as well.
It's expensive. Yeah, exactly. It's hard work. Unless you've got a barnstorming idea, you're in with the rest of the pack to grab people's attention. So it's high maintenance, high cost, lots of time, and you may get lucky. You may get lucky in the short term, because something resonates. There's a shift in the market that means you're suddenly popular. But you need to do it whatever. And then if you're being successful, then you can maybe start to rethink how you allocate budget and get that done. So I get confidence really, when my confidence is low, it's that we haven't got what I consider to be a very strong and well-funded plan. By the way, I'm talking just work now. I'm not talking.
That's
Julian.
And I'm interested in the fact that you described that as, it's low when I don't feel like I've got the right outcome, because it's or your right outcome is around feeling comfortable. So this is often, I think, confidence is a feeling, isn't it? Right? It's not necessarily a tangible thing. It's almost a gut feeling.
Yeah.
Really,
and I'm sounding a little bit very one-sided. It's not meant to be. I mean, there's probably more that I could do in certain situations, all about being brave, speaking your mind, demanding people's time when they're slightly unwilling to give it, especially in business relationships. If things aren't working, or if you feel that there could be improvements or changes that need to be made, demanding engagement so that you can have that chat is important. And some people don't really want to give that time up. It's a tough issue to confront. And what they'd rather hear is, I'll just sort it out for you. Don't worry about it. Unfortunately, life generally isn't like that. And they have to be actively involved. You can't outsource sales.
No.
Well, it does happen. I mean, but in the space I work in, it's a joint thing. You have to be close with the company. You have to understand the culture, the ability. You also have to understand the internal stories, the wins, the successes, the failures, the changes, the development cycle, what's coming down the line. So that when if you're a prospect, Gail, I can actually talk with some degree of knowledge about what's going on at Blogs & Co. So you just can't outsource sales and just give it away. It just doesn't work.
I think that kind of leads me nicely into sort of the next question around, how does confidence help you in what you do? So you've talked about sort of being brave, having the courage to speak out and all of that. Where do you use that most often?
I use that most often. I'm not sure I've completely understood your question, but let me answer anyway. I'll use that in the most senior conversations. So, well, no, let me think about that. No, I'll use it everywhere. So basically, it's in conversations. And I can come across as being a bit opinionated, and I have to watch against that a little bit because I don't know everything. So it takes quite a bit of effort. One of the things I would do, I should do more because I do tend to shoot from the hip a little bit, but one of the things that's really good is to prepare for calls.
Yeah.
So just get a sheet of A4 or your day book and just have your 5 or 6 things that you want to discuss. The other thing is to not miss one of them because the conversation went off on a tangent. Demand the time that you need to get through it and take good notes. I mean, this is all business 101, but it really is. If you can go back to a day book of a conversation with blogs, with your 6 questions, and your notes are good, that's golden forever because you've got it. And guess what? If you go to the end of that and you forgot something, there's another time. But the worst thing, and I've been guilty of this over the years, is I just shoot from the hip, go with my gut, don't get everything written down clearly, pick up another, activity. I'm always busy. and then go back and try and sort of scramble, so what did we say? What did we speak about? What did we do? So again, it's work, it's preparation and work. Yeah.
I tell you, the preparation thing comes up a lot with my clients, actually, where we talk about being confident or feeling more confident in meetings. Obviously, we don't express it like that because we often don't talk about sometimes they might just say, oh, I feel like I don't always speak up as much as I want to, or that I feel I should. I'm trying not to use the word should there, and preparation comes up a lot. And you're quite right about, we tend to go headlong into meetings, don't we, without really thinking about what we want the outcome to be.
Yeah.
And that, I think that preparation gives you confidence, because
it does. Yeah.
And it keeps you on track. So you feel like you're in control.
And also
of that.
You look credible.
Exactly. But all of that for me all kind of rolls up into you coming across as confident, which then gives people confidence in you that you're confident. I think that's grammatically correct.
No, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying.
I worked with a guy years ago who would not attend a meeting unless he had the answers. So he would need the reason for the meeting, who should be there, and the outcome that was being sought. And unless he got those three things, he would not go to the meeting. The other great one I heard, and this is just, I thought, wow, why didn't I think of this? If you have doubts about a meeting, I know we live in a virtual world now, so it's a bit harder, but when we all get back together, one of the things that he always insisted was that his meetings were standing meetings.
Yeah.
No chairs.
Yeah.
And he said, those meetings halved. They just, if it was going to be an hour, it was half. In fact, he said normally they were over in 5 minutes, and he demanded standing meetings.
Yeah.
Because people just get comfy, don't they?
Yeah. And
they get a really Danish and a cup of coffee. And,
and they're in there for the time of the meeting. Yeah, I've seen those in two places. Where I used to work, they used to one of the meeting rooms was called the War Room, and the trade meetings used to happen in there, and they took out all the tables and chairs, and it was a standing meeting only. So it was more direct, more more to the point. And I guess in some ways you probably had to be quite confident to go in there, because there wasn't an awful lot of thinking time. But also I think the IT team or the business change team, they started to use that in the morning in terms of like their a different way of working, and just having the stand-up meetings. And they've worked
that's really quite well. I've worked in in a big IT project. I was doing some business analysis and some sort of project leadership in a big transformation, and they are called stand-ups in the morning. At 8:45 there's a stand-up, and it's absolutely regimental sergeant major going through the numbers and out by 5 past. And the same thing the next day. Because some of these things are so critical, you just need to keep people on track. If you don't do it, things just wander and get forgotten. And Fred went on holiday, and did that order get placed? Well, I thought Fred was doing it. So it's great, and it's not right for every situation, but you could. The preparation and sticking to it is really good, and it feels quite hard, a little bit impersonal, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
Actually, what was going through my mind just then was, oh God, I wonder how an introvert, a person that is less confident, feels at those kind of meetings, because they're probably quite intimidating if you're not a naturally, a confident person that wants to engage in that kind of thing.
They are.
So as the person that's chairing that meeting, I would be thinking, right, how do I bring everybody into this, even the people that are probably stood at the back of the room at the stand-up, because they're feeling less confident because all of a sudden the tables have been removed and there's no barrier between the front and the back. There's lots going on.
Nowhere to hide.
No, absolutely.
It's a problem that I've witnessed. You need to be good if you're leading that. That's the trick. And I've seen it be not so good. And it can feel very intimidating.
I can feel that right now as we're talking about it. I can
Yeah,
feel
so
how.
I can even see some individuals in my memory who were just in excruciating pain at
Yeah.
those, and they needed to be managed. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right to point that out. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It just
No.
means it's you know,
Well,
it's a
so
tough world out there.
yeah, and if you're a leader listening to this, maybe you want to think about the next time you do a meeting like that, how are you making sure that that's an inclusive meeting and that
Yeah,
everybody is
I mean,
taking away from
I'm,
it what they
you
need?
know, I'm so old, Gail, that I remember the sort of rough old days. I'd like to think that these days that doesn't really happen too much now. I think people are sort of more aware of needing to get the best out of their people, and then having some appreciation for the red, blue, green, yellow mix in the room that you and I have also spoken about.
Yes, we have. I love it. We could talk forever. But so come on then, Julian, what is your top tip or takeaway that you'd like to share with the listeners about confidence?
I would say the first thing to anyone watching this is to ask yourself, am I confident about this? And if you're not, ask why not?
Yeah.
And when you ask why not, then think about the one or two things that you could do to improve your confidence.
Great.
What could I do? Is it more research and preparation? Or is it a tactic for getting off the blocks in a social situation? If you walk into the Royal Academy for drinks at 6 p.m. with a room full of real estate investment trust managers, what's your strategy? You know the host because you got an invite, but what's your strategy? What are you going to say? How are you going to introduce yourself? Who are you going to go up to? Do you understand the dynamics of three people in a group? Do you know how to interject? Do you know what to look for? Think about it. Do the work. It's tough.
And I think for me to answer that, first of all, I'm like, well, hang on, there's a Royal Academy for drinks. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
But I'm
it costs a few bob, but
yeah, I bet it does. I'm actually thinking, do you know what? Going into and you could apply that to any kind of networking situation, couldn't you?
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, how could I find out about the people that are going to be there, and who are the people that I might want to meet, and why might I want to meet them?
Yeah.
And then I'd be going in, and so for me, all that would all be in the preparation.
Yeah, so if you identified one or two individuals and you did a little bit of research, doesn't have to be a lot, you could go up and say, hello, Doris, I'm Gail. I was reading the piece you wrote on LinkedIn, the blog. I was fascinated by that, and but have a strategy. I used to go to parties when I was a kid and think, I'll stand in this corner until
wait for someone to come along.
Wallflower sort of thing. But not a wolf, sort of wall weed now, but sort of ivy or something. But have a strategy, do the work. There's almost and I've been guilty of this. I'm really not wanting to make anyone feel guilty, but there's almost a bit which is, if you're not prepared to do the work to address this, you'll probably suffer with it.
And do you know what, and I say this a lot, when I talk about coaching, people will say, I worked with a coach and actually it didn't really work for me. Okay, so some of that might have been in the relationship that you had with that person, some of it, but this comes down to you've got to put in the work. You could spend money on the most expensive coach you like, but it isn't going to work unless you are prepared to put in the work. Somebody said to me the other day something about, if you want to strengthen a muscle, so the confidence muscle, you you're not buying the muscle, you're buying the equipment to do it. You've still got to use that equipment to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think
Really
that's right. And I mean, I know the work you do is fantastic, and you've helped me in our conversations.
Thank you.
But you're right, you have to do the work. I can't just have a chat with you, Gail, go off and have a coffee and not do anything about it. I mean, that's not your responsibility. You've given me the tools. I need to go and use them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we come back to those little sessions, go, tell me what you've done, and you'll quite often refer back to kind of what's happened, and that's what it's about as well. It's about keeping accountable. Nobody likes to go back to somebody, do they, and say, oh, well, I didn't quite do that. They want to go, well, yeah, look at what I've done. That's just the nature of how we are.
And it can be tough. Maybe we don't get it right every day. I mean, anything, losing weight, getting fit, everything. It's there's a lot of work behind these achievements, and I think confidence is one of them. And it does require work. I think if you speak to any, some of the most famous actors, I always hear in interview that they were sort of they really weren't confident. They were shy. They were, I mean, really, really famous actors, and it's almost proof that if you want to sort of get confidence, you have to do the work. You have to step out, take the risk, and be forgiving of yourself and others.
And that probably is really important, is this whole be forgiving, show yourself a little bit of compassion, because you wouldn't say to a friend, well, what the hell were you playing at? Like you'd say to yourself, you'd say to your friend, oh, well, don't worry, off you go. It doesn't matter. You've learned something from it. Go and try again. It'll be fine. That's how. So we need to be more compassionate.
I need to do more of that.
There you go. I will check in with you to make sure you have done that. Oh, look, Julian, it's been really great talking to you. Just really quickly tell us, and we'll pop this in the show notes, but where can people find you if they want to get in touch or they want to connect with you?
Okay, well, I'm at Room 2, which is a great office location in the middle of Chichester. Fantastic. And I see you there from time to time. Apart from that, I'm on LinkedIn, Julian Moore at Sales Consulting Solutions. There is a website. Like many independent consultants, it's not kept up to date particularly well. I've been a bit busy. Or just reach out on LinkedIn, I would say, is probably the easiest. Julian Moore or Julian Richard Moore. And send me a connection request and I'll say yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Julian. It's been really great talking to you.
And you, Gail.
Thanks to everyone who's been listening, and we'll see you next time on the Confidence Conversations podcast.